A very interesting topic today I want to cover with you. That basically have to do with interest rates and what to anticipate in this incredible market space. So we're diving into one of the hottest financial topics right now, and that's interest rates, the Federal Reserve's next moves, what we're expecting them to do. Inflation, how all of this directly affects your money, your investments, and even your job security with the advancement of artificial intelligence and the implication to you and I. Okay, so first let's cover like what's happening right now. Okay, the Fed is expected to cut rates by 25 basis points in mid-September. That's what they're expecting. Okay, so this is September 12th. So literally, sometime next week, we're expecting the Feds to cut, like interest rates. Okay, you see, in plain terms, when the Fed cuts rates, borrowing becomes cheaper. Mortgages like car loans or credit cards and business loans, but it can also spark inflation if it's done too early. So this is a measure type activity that the government have to be involved in. Then we have the inflation also, playing its role. They call CPI, Consumer Price Index, is rising, and service inflation is very sticky. So if you look at the real life, examples like groceries, like rents, healthcare, everything is moving in a out of proportion zone. So it's like, okay, so what's going on here? And in addition to that, okay, you're also looking at the consumer sentiment because sometimes your perception is your own reality. So if you think that money is very hard, obviously whatever you have, you hold on to. So if you're not spending, you could affect the economy negatively. This is our fact. So survey shows that Americans are more pessimistic about the economy, and this is in an increasing measure. So to this extent, there are a lot of questions you'll be asking yourself, like what's happening, and what am I way out? Because we're at a very critical point of analysis where you have to make very sound financial decisions for or against. And these decisions are decisions that you and I need to embark upon to secure our future, in terms of our finances. Now, why does this really matter though? Because people are saying, okay, what do you mean? The Feds, is creating a situation right now that I will call a dilemma. Why? Because they are stuck between a rock and a hard place. If they cut interest rate too fast, what will happen is inflation will reignite. But if they wait too long, then the economy slows down and then jobs are lost. So this is the reason why is the government can there's no magic wand to this. The timing is critical. The analysis is very emergent, and there has to be a reasonable level, of a thinking through type of an approach, before the Feds, will ignite anything. So, for example, okay, businesses waiting to expand until rates are dropped. So businesses are very careful right now because they don't want to be in a situation where they feel like, oh my God, what is going on here? So they are intentionally taking their time because they want to be sure, for sure that they are just not making the next moves until they have a reasonable assurance that things are okay. Families are delaying home purchases right now. The American dream of a home is becoming just a dream, because it's like it's becoming the generation coming are having very difficult times trying to understand exactly, how to be able to make ends meet, talk more or talk less of buying a home. It's like out of their, preview right now, purview. They say the rates remain very high, which is very discouraging for for home purchases. But in addition to that is, the Fed, at this point, they haven't quite make up their mind on what they're going to do yet. They haven't. But what I can say to you is this, very soon, very, very soon, the Fed is going to be making some moves. But before then, there are implications, there are risks because gold is hitting record high after record. It's time to start thinking when the economy is heating up like this, if it's overheated, what happened? Then it's gonna have to bust. So in the same exact way, like people are a little nervous. The market is great, but they're nervous. Like, okay, what's next? So you see the implications and the risk. is this. The number one is a very early cut of interest rates can reignite inflation. Imagine gas prices, for example, spiking again. That's affecting everyday cost of living. So, because of that, again, they have to be very, very maniacal on their approach to what they do when it comes to the interest rate. The risk is called stagflation. That's high prices, plus very low growth. It's called stagflation. Second thing, there's a delay in cuts. Delay in cuts equal growth drag. By which right now they've been delaying the cut. Businesses cut back hiring, layoffs increases. There is a reasonable uncertainty because people are like, we don't know what's next. So the layoff increases, stock markets, sentiment turns really sour, and small businesses loans become almost too expensive, and which means less entrepreneurship. These are what could practically happen, with these dynamics, like understanding how the economy are intertwined and how it really works. You see, you also have what we call rate sensitive sectors that could become highly impacted because if you are in a kind of a sector that is like basically they respond to interest rates and the movement of the interest rates, now all of a sudden you could be in a situation where, honestly speaking, things can be like out of whack for you. All right, now watch this. In the world of financials, banks profit margins shrink with very low rates because when the rates are low, their profit margin is low. So financial institutions like banks typically will take a hit. Let's go to real estate. Real estate mortgage rates affect the housing demand. So once interest rate is high, what happened? Nobody wants to buy. When interest rate is low, everybody wants to buy. So these are called rate sensitive sectors. Now, take a look at consumer spending. Take credit card interest rates. If you look at credit card interest rates, they're still very high. It slows down retail. That means if you have a credit card, you're afraid to spend the credit card because you're getting 15, 20, 18, 22, 25%, 30% interest. You don't want that. So you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to chill for a moment. I'm not going to do anything yet. So consumer spending literally slows down. These are rate sensitive sectors that are heavily impacted. Then, how about the viewers? Watch this, okay? Viewers right now, like what you should be watching. You should be looking at data releases, like CPI, job reports, Fed's meeting notes. You should be taking a very serious look at this data because this will give you a better perspective where the government is moving so you can control your money better. Again, you should also be watching for what we call market signals. That's bonds, yields, gold prices, like your safe haven, along with S&P 500 reactions. And of course, your everyday life signs, you should be watching those. So job postings, housing affordability, credit card balances, etc., etc. I will be paying very, very close attention to these deals if I'm you. And of course, there's some actionable insight that you can take that I actually believe can help you a lot, a lot. So think about this for a moment, okay? And for some of you, it will click. You need to, and I'm going to encourage you very deeply on this. You need to make sure that you keep emergency savings stronger than ever because these are volatile times. Car breaks down, this happen, roofing, AC, stuff like that. Like unplanned emergency occur, and then you need to come with 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, $10,000, and the money's not there. Then what do you do? So at this point, keep emergency savings stronger than ever before. You should also avoid over leveraging. Don't rack up unnecessary debt at this point. Diversify investments very clearly. So consider both safe havens and growth opportunities. So you kind of split them, the right way. Real estate buyers, listen carefully to me. Watch mortgage rates very, very closely if you're going to buy real estate right now before you lock in anything. Because the decision you make could cost you a lot of money, it could make you a lot of money. Now, apparently, right now, do you think the Fed is making the right move by cutting rates? Do you think so? So if the Fed say, okay, I'm cutting rate right now, do you think it's the right move? Also, I want you to think about this also. I want to think about have higher interest rate changed your spending or even your investing habits? Think about that for a second. Because if interest is higher, how does that really impact you? How does it impact, your spending? I would love to know your comments after watching this. And of course, let me bring everything to a summary here. You know, Fed cut equals inflation risk, it equals delay, it equals growth drag, and and impacts felt in finance, in real estate, and jobs. No matter what the Fed does, those who stay educated and proactive with their money will always be ahead. This is a fact. So if you find this valuable, and maybe you like what you're hearing here, I want to hit the like button, share with a friend, and subscribe. We will keep pushing and unpacking the financial news as you can build wealth with confidence. So this way you know fully well that you're good, you are a-okay. Because my goal here is anyone that want to go into a financial literacy journey, I want you to be equipped, knowing fully well that nobody is more special than you, and that once you make a decision to do something, game over. So with that said, thank you for being, on the call right here with me, watching this YouTube. I cannot wait to read your comments.